And when you say the Israeli Arabs are a time bomb, they're a potential fifth column. That's all of them. You didn't say some terrorists.
I said Israel's Arab minority, which identifies in large measure with the Palestinian cause, is, in the long historical perspective, a potential time bomb. Yes, I would agree with that.
You said they're a potential fifth column.
Or a potential fifth column, yes.
An emissary of the enemy that is among us. This is vicious stuff.
No, I don't remember using the word enemy.
Whether you remember it or not is irrelevant. What? You said it. Their slide into complete Palestinization has made them an emissary of the enemy that is among us.
During the Second Intifada, when there were riots by Israeli Arabs, blocking of roads, etc., they behaved like an emissary of the enemy. This is correct.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Zees Political Arrow. Today, we're diving into a wild world of geopolitic gymnastics, where some folks manage to bend reality better than Olympic gymnastics. Brace yourself for a roller coaster of denial, a splash of selective memory, and just a hint of irony as we explore how some people, Benny Morris, can remain blissfully unaware of the chaos unfolding in Gaza. Grab your popcorn, because hypocrisy has never been this entertaining.
It depends on context. You keep quoting things without explaining the context.
I'm not sure there is any context for dismissing an entire people as a fifth column.
Nobody is... Okay, go ahead.
All right, let's talk about some other views of yours, which are somewhat controversial, many would say. You're not just somebody who said some...
You don't actually want any facts from me or any explanations of anything.
You just explained yourself very well. You said the Iraqis who throw bombs.
You just want to accuse.
I'm not accusing, actually.
Yes,
it's not an accusation, it's a fact.
This isn't really an interview. This is basically blame-throwing and an interrogation.
You don't like defending your views?
I don't like defending my views. I'm able to defend my views, but okay, you come up with these quotations which are out of context.
Oh,
you don't explain the historical context.
Okay,
the audience doesn't understand what you're talking about.
I just read the entire quote to you. I read the entire quote to you, Benny.
And then they used the word racist, which you used at the beginning when you introduced this subject.
You said, yeah, you said when... Okay, here's something else you said. You said, we're talking about murder in far larger numbers. It's not a matter of money, referring to Palestinians in Israel. It's the society's nature. Yes, I would say that's a racist comment to say an entire society has a murderous nature.
During the Second Intifada...
This was said in 2019, Benny, not in the Second Intifada. It's not my fault if you can't remember when you said things. In 2019, you said, we're talking about murder. It's the society's nature.
The murder of who?
The murder rates in Israel. You said Arabs have higher murder rates.
Explain to the audience what we're talking about.
I'm sorry to break it to you. That doesn't get you out of it. You said it's the society's nature.
Let me explain what was going on. The murder rates by Israeli Arabs of their fellow people, basically, not of Jews, but of fellow Arabs, is much, much higher. It's about 100 or 200% higher than the murder rate among Jews. The same applies, incidentally, to the killing of women. The same applies to honor murders, which are called honor killings, when a woman shows too much leg or looks at a man the wrong way. This is unfortunately inherent in Arab societies in general in the Middle East and among Israeli Arabs as well. That's the context.
My problem is there's no context for making sweeping statements.
You know that's true.
Let me ask you this.
Racist.
Let me ask
you this. Is that true or not?
You are a racist.
We will bring in.
True?
We will bring in.
Not racist. Is it true?
We will bring in Diana in a moment.
Is it true?
I want to ask one last question.
You are a racist.
Forget the word racist.
Benny.
You actually just made a racist
comment. We're talking about facts.
When you said
Benny, I will let Diana respond in a moment.
I will let.
You can't tell me that you don't want heckling from the audience and then engage when we're talking. You can't have it both ways. So I'm talking to you. We'll come to the audience.
Okay.
One last question. You can do what you like. One last question. It's a free country, as they say. Let me ask you this. It's not just the racism that you've been accused of. You've also been accused of warmongering. You just recently wrote a Haaretz column in June where you said Israel should consider nuking Iran to prevent them from acquiring nuclear weapons. Not even Benjamin Netanyahu has said that. You've said it.
Well, he's more responsible. He's a prime minister.
So you're irresponsible?
Yes.
I mean, nuking an entire country.
That is not what's written in the article. You misquote everything you say.
I asked
Almost
you a question.
Everything you say.
It was a question.
Okay, I'll say what the context is.
Please.
Is destroying the Iranian nuclear facilities. That's the context.
With nukes?
Yes, with nukes, but not destroying Iran, as you just said, I said.
You think dropping a nuke on Iran would have limited...
Not on Iran. On small nuclear bombs can destroy facilities like Natanz, and you know that.
And you...
It's not to do
I mean, you've been advocating this for 15 years, right?
No, I've been advocating an Israeli strike against the Iranian nuclear project because Iran says that its policy is to destroy Israel. If they ever,
but it doesn't have nukes.
If they ever achieve nuclear weaponry, Israel will be in mortal.
But you didn't say that. You said bomb them now. You said in 2008.
No. Now,
in 2008,
you're not telling the truth. You know that.
You didn't call for the nuclear. You didn't call for a nuclear strike in 2008 on Iran.
No, I didn't.
You wrote
in 2008, I said Israel should destroy the Iranian nuclear installation
with a nuclear strike.
No, I didn't say that.
This is my problem, Benny. You keep saying you don't remember.
No, I do.
The New York Times, July the 18th, 2008, an Israeli nuclear strike to prevent the Iranians from taking the final steps towards getting the bomb is probable.
I didn't say I supported it. I said it's probable.
You said the alternative is letting Tehran have its bomb. It's very clear what you were supporting. Come on, now who's playing word games?
Israel does not have as part of its policy and doesn't announce as its policy the destruction of Iran. But Iran does say that its policy is to destroy Israel, and they are working diligently to get nuclear weapons. And if the Iranians do achieve nuclear weapons, Israel will be finished. That's what the Iranians are aiming at. And using tactical nuclear weapons to destroy the Iranian nuclear installations before they achieve nuclear weaponry, it makes sense to me. It may not make sense to you because you're not an Israeli, so you don't care. But
I'm a human being, so I care about nuclear weapons.
I don't know what you care about. I don't know what you care about.
Well, you just assumed. Let me go to our panel here. We have Diana Boutou, Palestinian lawyer in Israel, former advisor to the PLO. We have Daniel Levy, former Israeli peace negotiator at the US Middle East Project. We have Emmanuel Navon, who is an international relations lecturer at Tel Aviv University. Diana, I've got to bring you in first since we got started earlier. Potential fifth column.
This is exactly the problem, is that he's a racist. He espouses these racist views. That's the problem with Israel. Israel is a society, a country that is based on this idea of Jewish supremacy, and anything that they do or say goes, which means, therefore, that as a Palestinian who lives in that country, who is not enjoying any benefits of so-called democracy, that they get to espouse and tell me how I feel. They get to make statements like we are a fifth column, and they actually treat Palestinians as though they are a fifth column. It's very important, Mehdi, for people to understand that Israel came to us. We didn't immigrate to Israel. Israel's a colonial movement, and as a colonial movement, its aim is to not only get rid of Palestinians, but it's to transform the entire place, to erase and replace.
Okay, Emmanuel, I want to ask you this. Do you recognize the shifts that Benny was agreeing on at the start of this segment about what's happening inside of Israeli society?
Well, allow me to respond to what Diana just said. She's not telling the truth. What she's saying is not true. First of all, the Jewish country, I mean, there are over 190 states in the world. Most of them are nation states. It's not about supremacy. It is about national self-determination and freedom. Now, we didn't come to you. This is our land.
No, it's not.
This is a Jewish land.
The way that the state was created was
our
through
land.
the
And first of all, when you take we came to you, it's not. I did not interrupt you.
Diana, let him finish his point, Diana.
Okay. First of all, when you say we've been there for hundreds of years, the word Palestine, it's an invention of British colonialism. It was invented in 1920. It did not exist under the Ottoman Empire.
Again,
so when this story starts, it's a colonial invention. So when you say Palestine, and you can't even pronounce it in Arabic because there's no P in Arabic, that's why we say Philistine, right?
There's no J in Hebrew.
We did not conquer.
All right, Emmanuel, I'm going to bring you back to my question and then move on. What do you make of Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir referring to Arabs in the most dehumanizing race? Are you going to deny that as well?
Like every society, we have our extremists.
Okay.
It's a democracy. I don't agree with them, but we have, like every society, we have our extremists. And
yours are in government.
Yes, well, I didn't vote for this government. I wish they were not in the government.
Okay. Daniel hasn't spoken. Daniel Levy.
When I was in a Zionist youth movement and president of the World Junior Jewish Students, being pumped with the talking points and the propaganda points, I really think they were more sophisticated, and I may be misremembering this. I genuinely cannot believe that this is what now constitutes an Israeli attempt at defending and putting your best foot forward. But then I look at the reality in Israel today, and of course that's what it should look like, because what's the reality we're living in? And let me take two snapshots. First of all, it's really not that surprising that we've got to this point when you consider the impunity with which the external community and Israel's allies and the West and the US treat Israel, despite the litany, the entire spectrum of violations of international law and of human rights. And yet every time there's an excuse, there's a veto at the United Nations, and then there's more arms. And in that respect, don't expect Israelis to come up with better talking points when they don't have to, because you're willing to run cover for them and create completely the wrong incentive.
The delightful dance of denial. As Mehdi Hassan opened the floor for insight, we witnessed Benny Moore's morph into a victim of his own making, his defense mechanism firing on all cylinders, as if he's being cross-examined in a courtroom drama. But let's be real, when you peddle revisionist history with the finesse of a bull in a china shop, what else can you expect? Benny's flustered demeanor is a masterclass in self-inflicted interrogation, as he trips over his own contradictions while the panel watches in bemused silence. That you'll see, it's like watching someone light a firecracker and then look shocked when it goes off. Oh, and the hypocrisy? Chef's kiss.
Okay, right. Please respond briefly.
I must protest. You've brought three people in a panel, two of whom are pro-Palestinian, anti-Zionist.
That's the purpose of the panel, yes.
It's supposed to be two against one. That's the way you've organized this.
Yes, we did ask you to watch the show before you came here.
I consider myself pro-Jewish,
no, you're not
pro-Palestinian, pro-human. I consider myself...
Okay.
Let me finish.
Please.
Let me finish. You are a pro-Palestinian propagandist. That's all you've become, just so that you know that.
Let's go around the audience. We're going to try and see where we've got some hands up. We're going to go to gentleman here, third row with the jacket on.
Just if you could say something more from an Israeli perspective in terms of the threat they face from Hamas as an Islamist movement which is pledged to slaughter all the Jews in Israel. That's what it says in its charter, never revoked charter. If you could explain that in more detail, please.
The Hamas is a small organization with a small army of terrorists. It doesn't represent, in my view, an existential threat to Israel, but as part of the larger Muslim radical Arab world, that part of it, including Iran, together they do represent an existential threat to Israel. Israel is not fighting merely the Hamas, it's fighting the Houthis, it's fighting militias in Syria and Iraq, it's fighting the Hezbollah, orchestrated by the Iranians at the moment, which wants to destroy Israel, yes.
Lady here in the third row on the second.
My question is to Diana or Daniel, because I want an honest and truthful answer. Given the decades-long brutality against the Palestinians by the Israeli government without much regard for international law or consequences, should we have seen the escalation in this genocide coming? And what could be the global implications when states disregard international law to justify and even normalize genocide?
Diana, briefly.
We've gotten to a point in this world where the world tells us that nothing can justify October 7th, and yet everything that Israel has done since October 7th can be justified by October 7th. That's a distorted world, and we have to understand what this occupation has meant. It's been violent from day one. The Nakba was violent, and what we're seeing today is a continuation of that Nakba. For world order to be restored, we need to have a system where all states are held to account, not where we get to have a country that says it's time to bomb Iran because they might have a nuclear weapon. Big secret, Israel has a nuclear weapon too.
Gentleman in the brown jacket and then the gentleman here in the blue jumper.
I know that we're on Al Jazeera, a Qatari station. What do we think about the fact that Qatar has funded Hamas for so long, persecuting Gazan Palestinians? And also, we haven't heard one mention of the 120 hostages still being kept. And what pressure could Qatar be putting on Hamas to release those hostages immediately, regardless of all the rest of this?
Well, Qatar has been supporting the Hamas for at least a decade, with money, propaganda, etc., probably using Al Jazeera also in that fashion. This should end. I think normal states shouldn't support what the world regards, or at least the Western world regards uniformly as a terrorist organization. It's true that Hamas is still holding 120 Israeli hostages, women, children, octogenarians, 2-year-olds and whatever. They had 250 in the beginning, now it's been reduced to 120, many of them killed by Hamas people. Many of them killed by Hamas.
And by Israelis.
And by Israelis. Israelis also killed some of the hostages. Hopefully they will be released.
Okay. We hope they will be released. I would just say one thing. Why did the Israeli government prop up Hamas for so long and encourage Qatar to send money to Gaza?
Stupidly. They're not hearing my answer.
I'm just wondering.
You asked the question, so let me answer the question.
You give a long answer to that.
The answer is that the Israeli government under Netanyahu behaved stupidly, and this was part of the incompetence of Netanyahu.
I think it was incompetence. Let's go to the gentleman here in the blue jumper. Let's take his microphone.
I'm Martin Shaw, and I wrote a book called What is Genocide?
Perfect person. What is genocide,
I wanted to bring
Martin?
Benny back to Gaza, because you said it's a war, and there's collateral damage, and that Hamas knew. And that may be true. But, I mean, the real point is that Israel knew, isn't it? That if you bend the rules of war so that 100 people can be killed for one militant, if you do that thousands and thousands of times with 2,000-pound bombs, you know that the whole of Gaza is going to be a ruin. You know that you're going to destroy that society. And that the only way we can understand that in an overall sense is not a series of war crimes. It is one big crime, and I think the name for that is genocide.
Absolutely.
Do you want to respond to that? Hold on, let him respond.
I think I've already made the point. The Hamas, when it attacked Israel on the 7th of October, knew that Israel would retaliate with bombing and knew that lots of Gazan civilians would die. They were hoping for that because that looks good on Western television images. But they say that killing a lot of Gaza civilians is good because they go to heaven. They become martyrs. So this is
Benny,
allowed.
Benny, can I ask you a question?
Did I say something wrong?
No, I just want to follow your logic here.
Hamas knew that.
I just want to follow your argument is Hamas knew that if they did this, we'd do a genocide, so we did a genocide.
Not genocide, no. You're misusing.
Like they knew that we would come and kill lots of people, so we did. It's a very weird argument.
They knew that Israel would kill lots of Gazans.
They knew that Israel would kill lots of Gazans. Not a great
Yes, they knew that. Going after the Hamas, they knew that lots of Gazan civilians would be killed, and they were happy with this because of international pressure which would result.
Okay, we're running out of time. I want to take a gentleman in the suit. Yes.
Benny Morris, you say that the ICC should issue an arrest warrant against the Israeli Prime Minister and the Israeli War Minister, Yoav Gallant. But on the 9th of October, they imposed a total siege on 2.3 million civilians in Gaza, depriving them of water, medicine, food. That is what they're accused of, starvation as a weapon of war, something that the Syrian and the Russian regimes were accused of. Do you condemn that?
Has anybody died in Gaza of starvation?
Yes. Yes, Benny.
This is total nonsense.
Hold on.
The Israeli. You want me to answer?
Yes, I do.
Do you want me to answer?
But I want some evidence. You can't just say things that are false. I'm not going to let you say that.
The Israeli government, I think, the ministers debated whether to cut off water, cut off electricity, etc., etc. They eventually resolved not to do that. And though lots of reporters have been saying, and the United Nations, that Gaza is on the verge of starvation, on the verge of famine, etc., etc., that has not happened.
Benny, how do you know that? How do you know that? Hold on, stop heckling. How do you know that, Benny? And please,
I haven't read any report of anyone dying of starvation.
There have been many reports.
I haven't read any.
So that makes it nonsense because you haven't read any.
I haven't heard of anybody dying of starvation.
You don't think there's a famine in northern Gaza?
No, I think there's a food problem there. Do you
think there's a famine in northern Gaza?
I don't know what the word famine means. There is a food problem. There's malnutrition. This I have heard.
But nobody's died. They've all conveniently stayed alive.
As far as I know, nobody has died of starvation in the Gaza Strip, as far as I know.
I've read quotes from you saying you're a historian, you look at the sources, you find the evidence, and now you're like, I don't know what famine means, I haven't seen anything. I mean, it's a big claims you're making. You should back it up with some evidence.
You should back it up. Tell me a report in which somebody has died of starvation.
Cindy McCain.
Who's Cindy McCain?
Is the head of the World Food Programme. She's the widow.
She said what? She said what?
She's the widow of Senator John McCain, the most pro-Israeli senator of my lifetime.
She said what?
She said northern Gaza is a full-blown famine and that there are children, women and children in skeletal states there.
Did she say somebody died of starvation? I'm asking you.
Cindy
Did
McCain,
anybody die of starvation?
Yes, there have been documented cases. Read the newspapers. Read the humanitarian
What you just
agencies.
quoted didn't talk about starvation.
You said there was no famine a moment ago.
I didn't say. I said I don't know what famine is.
Well, that's a good get out, and it's at the core of the discussion. Let's take another question. Gentleman in the green jacket's been waiting a while.
Hi, my question is to Benny. I just want to know, if you were Palestinian, right, and you were born in Palestine, would you, given the circumstances, support a Palestinian's right to resistance in the form that they have?
I don't know about the form. I would support Palestinian resistance if I was living under Israeli occupation, yes.
Which is what the Palestinians are.
Yes.
Benny, we're out of time. It's a very interesting question he posed, very interesting answer. I do want to ask about, because I watched a recent discussion you did and you were telling your opponent, you need to have empathy, you need to put yourself in other people's shoes. So let's just continue on gentleman's very good question, I thought. I mean, if you were a kid in Gaza right now, and you saw your home blown up by the Israeli Air Force, you saw your parents incinerated in front of you, you're starving, what's your view of Israel going to be?
It'll probably be very negative, but it might also be negative towards the Hamas who generated this conflict and led to that home being bombed by Israel.
You think that's what the kid is thinking when he sees his parents killed by an Israeli bomb?
He might think both things.
What would you think if you were that kid?
Probably I would describe the death of his parents to an Israeli bomb and to the Israelis, but I might, on reflection, later think maybe the Hamas shouldn't have slaughtered so many Israelis on the 7th of October, which led to this.
I'm genuinely asking, is that your talking point, or is that, as a human being, that's how you would feel?
As a human being, I think I would feel anger towards those who had just killed my parents, but I think growing up and on reflection, I might think that the Hamas had led to this.
Quite the empathy I was looking for, but we will... I mean, if that's your honest answer, I'll take it.
And there you have it, folks. Benny Morris, a man who dances around facts like a cat avoiding water, has once again tried to rewrite reality. But here, at Zees Political Arrow, we pierce through the spin and hit the bullseye. His attempts to dodge accountability are as flimsy as his historical narratives. Both unravel under scrutiny. While Benny might prefer his version of history neatly sanitized, the truth is far messier and doesn't cater to his comfort. So next time you hear a soft shoe shuffle of deflection and denial, remember, we're here to cut through the noise with some facts, humor, and no-nonsense approach. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because truth matters, and we're just getting started.